Welcome to another unit in this Excel course. This time I'm going to talk about references or referencing specific cells. Well, whenever I want to use a formula where I actually use data entered into specific cells, I need to reference these cells. Meaning, if for example I enter here a few numbers, and now I want to add in this field all of these numbers up, I can just go equal to, then I reference the first one, so it's C4 plus the next one, C5 plus C6 plus C7. Whenever I enter them, as I did here, I actually have a relative reference. Meaning, if I were to pull this down, this changes because he automatically changes them the same way. Because what he remembers here is not C4, C5, C6, C7. He remembers for the first entry, go 2 to the left. For the second entry, go 2 to the left and 1 down. For the third one, 2 to the left, 2 down, so forth. And well, he does the same thing here. So for the first entry, go 2 to the left. For the second entry, 2 to the left, 1 down. For the third entry, 2 left, 2 down. So what I enter here actually changes. He will always, when I put the formula into a different cell, change the formula accordingly. Because he has relative, always in relation to this position of this specific cell. Well, this can help if you, for example, want to always use the same formula but on specific cells. So, for example, if I always want to have, let's say, the square root of this result, go to the power of 0.5, and I want to simply fill this out, click here, autofill. He does this for all the corresponding cells. That's where I actually can use relative references. Here in this case, it might be interesting to actually keep the values as they are. Keep them as C4, as C5, C6, C7. Whenever I want to actually do something like this, say this is always C4, I'm using absolute references. Well, let's do this with a different example. Imagine, we'll just put this on the side. Imagine I'm adding up all of them. So I'm using, for example, the sum function here. And then I want to know which share these 4 positions make in the total. So I want to go have this one divided by this value. So this works fine. If I have to enter this by hand, will work fine as well. But if I want to use here the autofill function, pull this down, I will get a problem because he will not only change the position of the C5 but also of the C8 of the sum. So what I actually want him to have is keeping the C8, so the sum cell, fixed. Always use at this point only C8. If I want to keep this fixed, so use an absolute reference, I'm just putting dollar signs in front of the letter, in front of the number. This keeps the C8 fixed. So here, the first one changes because it's still relative. The second one, the sum, always remains the same. Well, here you saw I used 2 dollar signs. One to keep the C fixed and one to keep the 8 fixed. In this context, well, I'm still working in column C, even if I pull this down. So keeping the C fixed in this context is not really relevant. It's only relevant that I always keep here in this row. So I only need to keep the 8 fixed. So I could even reduce this to $8 And it will still work because it will keep the row fixed. If I were to be doing the same stuff, but only here with the values in a row, that's my sum here, want to keep now the sum in this case fixed. So do the same thing with the shares here again. In this case, if I were to pull this to the right, I would go K to L to M to stuff like this. This I want to avoid. So here I need to keep the K fixed. So I put a $sign in front of the K. Can use autofill. And this keeps the K fixed. So whenever I use the $signs, I make an absolute reference telling him exactly this is the specific cell you should be using. If I don't use $signs, I'm using relative references. So just telling him in correlation or in relation to this cell, use the one above and the one here. And he will always, if I use autofill or copy the function or stuff like this, always remember one up and then go here. This could actually lead to some problems if you, copy the function in different other contexts. And that's already everything there is on using references, and in particular on the difference between relative and absolute references. So I hope you enjoyed this short session, and if you want to see more, feel free to visit the rest of the course or have a look at the corresponding playlist. I say goodbye and see you next time.